the U.S. is increasing pressure on Israel over the war against Hamas. President Biden warned that Israel could lose global support overnight for what he called indiscriminate bombing in Gaza.
Well, Israel's prime minister is publicly pushing back against the president's plan for Gaza after the war. Despite all the pressure, Israeli leaders are more determined than ever to destroy Hamas. Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
President Biden called for a change in Israel's current government, claiming it's, quote, making it very difficult for Prime Minister Netanyahu to move. While pledging continued military assistance to Israel, he criticized what he called indiscriminate bombing of Gaza and added, they have to be careful. The whole world's public opinion can shift overnight. We can't let that happen. There's also disagreement about what happens in Gaza after the war. In a statement thanking the U.S. for its support, Netanyahu repeated his opposition to the administration's stance on the Palestinian Authority ruling the territory.
I want to clarify my position. I will not let Israel repeat the Oslo mistake. I will not allow that after the great sacrifice of our citizens and fighters, we bring into Gaza those who teach terrorism, support terrorism, finance terrorism. Gaza will be neither Hamastan nor Fatahstan.
Tuesday, the UN General Assembly voted for an immediate ceasefire. Israeli Ambassador Gilad Erdan blasted the vote.
No piece of paper, especially one that is adopted by a biased, politicized majority, will prevent Israel from defending itself against those that seek our destruction. Israel is fighting a war for her future. There is not a single member state here, not a single member state here that would act differently in a similar situation.
A Wall Street Journal poll showed a majority of Americans support Israel in its fight against Hamas. 55% said Israel is taking the military action needed to defend itself and prevent another attack by Hamas, while only 25% said Israel's military action is disproportionate and going too far. Meanwhile, in Gaza, 8 Israeli soldiers died in the fighting on Tuesday. While the Wall Street Journal is reporting the IDF has started pumping seawater into Hamas's tunnels to destroy one of its main military assets and drive out top leaders. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, it's absolutely time for moral clarity in our administration and in our leadership, and they need to leave the politics behind them on this. The moral clarity needs to be clear. If you want to double mean it and double stamp it, there was a horrible terrorist attack. It was planned for a long period of time. In that planning, they designed to use rape as a weapon of war. They were designed to kill children. They did this, and they did it horrifically, and they did it in the name of Hamas, in the name of free Palestine from the river to the sea. Now, Israel has an absolute moral right to defend itself and to take Hamas off the map so Hamas cannot exist anymore. But what's happening right now, and you heard it from our own president, that Israel has to be careful, that public opinion can turn overnight. Public opinion isn't going to turn at all. We all recognize what Hamas did. What is happening is the Democratic Party is turning overnight, and it's splitting right now. And it's splitting on demographic lines, where young people who have been indoctrinated into somehow Israel is a colonial power, Israel is an apartheid state, all of which are false narratives at their very core. It's absolutely false. Israel has a right to the land of Israel, the Jewish people. It's their ancestral homeland. They have the right of self-determination. That has been international law since the League of Nations. You look at this and say, well, the UN passed a resolution authorizing it. Israel was recognized in 1948. The only people that didn't recognize it were the Palestinians. They have been calling for the removal of Israel now for over 75 years. We have to stand against that call and say, no, You don't get to do this. You don't get to drive Israel into the sea. This is a false hope on your part that somehow you're ever going to win this battle. You're not going to. Please lay down your weapons. Please stop this terrorism. The clarion call needs to be Hamas has to unconditionally surrender. Hamas has to give up the hostages. Hamas has to stop terrorism. And until they do, Israel has every right to pursue this war.